Welcome to First Things First. I'm Brooke Blurt and my pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills, my pronouns are he and him, and before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. And for me, that's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. How are you? You look beautiful. I have to say it. I already said it before, but you look really beautiful.
I'm in my red era, yes.
You are. Is this a Taylor Swift inspired red era?
Absolutely not. No. I feel like I'm just...
Okay.
Feeling the love, maybe. Who knows?
Ooh,
Who knows?
There's love in the air. There's love in the room. I love it.
Love is in the air.
I have to admit something, bringing up Taylor Swift. I think I've jumped the fence. I know in our last piece of content I was jumping the fence to like possibly be, a straight man with a woman, but now I've like jumped the fence for Taylor Swift. I actually really like her stuff.
Wow, that's
full circle.
That's a big claim.
I know. But I mean, in saying that, I haven't listened to any of her songs. It's more about her stardom, and I'm like, okay, she's given me Michael Jackson. Someone said this to me a long time ago. Actually, it was Smallsy. I was doing a press event with The Little Mermaid, and he was the interview before me, and we were talking about Taylor Swift. He'd just come back, I'm pretty sure, from Spain where he saw her, and he said, "Oh, she's got this Michael Jackson-esque stardom to her," and I was like, ugh, whatever. I think I even mentioned it on the pod that I was like, no way. Anyway, I've jumped on the Taylor train, and I was texting Ricardo for tickets. I was like, hey, mate, any chance you could hook a brother up? Like, absolutely not. Like, those tickets are the hottest tickets in the country right now. So I'm like, oh, okay. I have to admit that. I'm a fan of Taylor now.
Well, I have to admit I actually had tickets and I said no to them.
What?
Yeah, Meta.
Where are they?
I know. Meta invited me, actual Instagram Meta. Like, yeah.
Oh, my life.
I said no.
Okay, I'm texting my friends at Meta. I've got some friends there.
There you go.
Yeah,
there's your hookup.
I should give them a call right now and tell them we're on air.
Say, Brooke, decline the tickets. No, look, I'm just like think, someone can have that opportunity. I'm not that interested in her. Like, I must admit, like, this is my argument. We're not arguing, but like, this is my stance, is that I've never connected with her music. I've never connected with her as a person. I've never felt like she's someone that I look at and I'm like, I want to be her or I want to like listen to her. And it's just like, I don't know. I know her songs if I heard them, but I don't know. I mean, I was just into different bands and different music when I was younger. So I was like, well, yeah, I feel like... So it's like her Eras tour, so all the sort of phases that she's gone through in life and blah, blah, blah. Like, obviously we all go through different phases, but I'm just like, I never connected with one of them.
Yeah, well,
maybe her love era, maybe her little romance, like
I see interesting. Girl, that was like 1955.
Exactly.
No, I'm surprised that you haven't connected with her music because it is all about love and connection and, and then that's something that's so down your alley. I feel that
yeah, but when you look at my type of music about love, like the love music that I'm into, it's like Aretha, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. Like, not Mariah Carey's white, but like, she got
Mariah Carey isn't white?
Well, she's pale.
Oh, my God. Brooke Blurton, you just called Mariah Carey white. Oh, my life.
She ain't got no tan. I know.
God, there has been... Okay, we need to have a history lesson. I'm gonna come back to this. She is a black woman, trust me. She...
yeah, so was Michael Jackson.
Okay, good way to tie in the Michael Jackson stardom.
Actually, let's talk about that later in the episode. Let's talk about...
Well, I'm gobsmacked that you called Mariah Carey white, and then and then yeah.
Do you remember when we were in LA and we saw her live at LA Pride, and I was like, "Girl, she's white."
No, you didn't say that. You said that you thought that she was like really tired. She looked exhausted. She was just very underwhelming, and she even walked off stage at one point because she couldn't breathe in the dress that she was wearing, and so she went off and did like a quick outfit change. But it was underwhelming. She was. Yeah.
Also, remember when she did that like like Mean Girls Caddy moment where she like broke her crown into like a few pieces and like threw them out to the crowd? Do you remember that?
No, I think I have a feeling that I was probably I don't know. Where was I then? Like maybe at the bar? Guys, I'm not outing myself. I was so well behaved at LA Pride.
No, we were, but like...
We legit got burgers and went home. I wanted to go and fucking fuck up a dance floor. And you're like, no, let's eat the burgers and go home.
That sounds accurate. That sounds like me.
And
no,
fell
I think
fell asleep on the train on the way to the burgers.
Any motion, I'm out. I know.
I have photos in my phone of you just like power napping on the way after a massive Pride event. It was great. But what I wanted to say was, look, I feel like there is like this energy in Sydney, and you probably had it just in Melbourne, of this like Taylor Swift vibe. And I feel that I don't know, I'm enjoying it. I love the fact that she brings this sort of massive energy wherever she goes. It's cool. She's average. Like, I know that she's got the very like average, I don't want to say I love our white producers, I promise. But average white girl like vibes. She's like she's got that. She doesn't have a Beyonce-esque like sparkle to me, but I still like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think she like talks to a lot of girls, you know, through her music, and I think they obviously resonate and connect with it for some reason, which I don't feel like that's
96,000 people over like
well, yeah, and apparently it was the most she's ever had. And then also at the same time, a lot of people that actually went to the concert were saying that it was quite like inclusive, and just a few reasons actually. So they were saying like, as you sort of look around, all the girls are just like in awe and like so happy, and like everyone wants to be there. You know how they're like at concerts and stuff, there are a few people that are like a little bit like unhappy, like they kind of getting dragged there, or they're not in the mood or whatever. Like everyone, mostly everyone at that concert was pretty excited to be there. So the vibe and the noise was extreme, but everyone was like, Adam from Gogglebox, actually I met him yesterday. He's such a sweetheart, but he was saying he went with his partner, and you know, he watched all these young girls literally walk up to complete strangers and like compliment them on their outfits and their dresses. And like it's such, and like that's nice to hear, like, or, you know, majority of the
people being kind
audience, you know, the people there like would have been girls, and it's just so nice to like, you know, it is a bit culty, but I think at the same time it's actually really nice and refreshing that girls are supporting girls.
Oh, totally. Well, enough about Taylor Swift, enough about supporting her. She's got enough fans. Let's get on to what we're here to talk about. We had such a great chat this week. I found that like we had a yarn on the phone, and we were unpacking sort of stereotypes and how they, you know, are barriers to us cutting through in the industry, but also to us believing in ourselves and chasing our dreams. And I loved our yarn that we had on the phone about our aha moments of like, when was the first moment that you wanted, you know, had your ignition of a dream, or you had an idea that you thought would be something that you would work towards, like a goal. And we were like yarning about how those moments were so pivotal in our growth as young people, and like it sparked inspiration for us. But we also spoke about the stereotypes that our people, you know, have endured. Yeah. And we were literally listing them.
We were, yeah.
I can see the first one right here.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been some really dark moments, I think, in both of our lives. And I think that's life. Obviously, we talk about how, you know, this podcast is about, you know, shared, lived and first experiences. And I think a lot of our experiences that we've had have shaped us and changed us, and you know, given us some optimism and some hope and a different way of life that we're used to at home. And I think like I know what is out there and what is like what I'm capable of. And I think a lot of people, you know, may have not had that or experienced that, or you know, there's been moments in their lives that have done that and has shaped them. But the thing is, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we're always kind of going up against these systems. And I think that's probably one thing that I've noticed throughout all the different things that I've done is you're going up against systems all the time. And it's actually much harder sometimes than, I guess, some other people. And it's like they're not having to face these different challenges or these different biases or these different thoughts that people have on them. You know what I mean? Like no one, So I think like that's what we started, I guess, having this conversation about. And I guess kind of one of our motivations in life is to recreate the narrative and to, I guess, open different opportunities. And like I'm just so sick of these stereotypes being, I guess, perpetuated and put onto us when we live bloody good lives where we work fucking hard. Yeah. We give back to our community, which is very rare sometimes for people. And we always want to do good. Like, we do it for ourselves, but we have a long, a big community behind us. A long community. Long. We've got 65,000 years behind us. So, I just want to kind of set the record straight. I mean, first things first, I think some of these stereotypes are fucked. And I get really angry about them. And I kind of hate seeing the racism specifically on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, especially TikTok, actually, because I mean, Facebook was pretty bad, but I'd actually say TikTok's even worse.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I watched some videos of some, Indigenous creators, and I feel so proud. I look at that and I'm like, you know what? Like, they're getting into content creation. This is something that I've been in. I feel very passionate towards. And, they're branching out into it and creating these videos, and the comments and the commentary around their race and, like, the way what they're doing is just, like, disgusting. Like, it makes me so upset. Yeah. And yeah, it's bad. And it's like, fuck, you look at someone else, like, say, Kat Clark, 5 million on TikTok. Does she experience the same racism? No. Like, it's just fucked. Anyways, so I feel like, let's kind of set the record straight with some of these stereotypes. And I think debunk maybe some of these misconceptions. I 100%, I think it's going to be great to go through like some of those major stereotypes that we've had to sort of face. But before we get there, I want to like talk about how these sort of stereotypes were definitely something that became barriers or psychological barriers, I suppose, to thinking that you would be able to achieve your goals and dreams. And they almost became like the hurdles that we had to jump to prove that we weren't those things to be able to find any success, especially in this industry. And I find that like these stereotypes, the ones that we're going to unpack and debunk, are the stereotypes that have caused a misconception of who we are as people and how undervalued we are as First Nations people in this country, but also in the media. And like, I still know, like this only happened yesterday, and I'll give you an example. So I was having a conversation last night with somebody who is from a migrant background and is traveling to Australia, right? And she said to me, I lived here 12 years ago for 1 year. Is there still an alcohol issue with the Aboriginal people? And I was gobsmacked because, like, I don't hear that sort of overt misconception as often as like, or as confronting as this sort of scenario. But she also said to me, she said, they have alcohol issue and they get their homes handed to them by the government. And so for me, I wasn't in a place where I felt like I wanted to combat that racism. Instead, like you're
I
like, not today. Not today.
Because it takes a lot, because you have to sit with people and you have to give the time and energy to unpack why they think that way and what sort of miseducation they've received or misinformation. Yeah. And it comes down to the systems that are in place that pour that information out into the public. I'm talking about government institutions, tertiary institutions, schools, education systems and curriculums.
And also plus learnt behaviour.
And learnt behaviour. So for me, I like have to pick and choose when I want to combat that racism. And to her, it's not racism because she's actually just giving me what she's been fed. She's giving me what she believes is to be true. And unfortunately, like there are so many people out there in the wider community that absolutely have the same view as her. And she's a great person. We get along really well. She's beautiful. She's like a really nice person and wouldn't want to be racist, but because she's been taught something, she's been indoctrinated to believe something about us that is, she believes it's fact. And instead of combating it, I just let it go and diverted from the conversation because I wasn't up to it. But today I think it did put fuel to my fire, and I'm like, I'm ready to unpack some of these stereotypes. And speaking of fuel to fire, let's kick off with a very well-known stereotype in our community, and it is a stereotype that I feel was introduced, a couple of decades ago, actually, and it happened after the Northern Territory intervention.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what the Northern Territory intervention is, it was when a government-led military initiative sent troops into the Northern Territory to supposedly break down a pedophile ring and to combat pedophilia within the Northern Territory. That was the aim. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of research done into the Northern Territory intervention. There's been no actual evidence that there was ever any of that happening.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, I don't know much about it, and this has actually sparked a bit of a research thing in my head. Like, I'd like to know more about this because I think, not that I would really like to want to research into pedophilia, but I think, I work with young children, and I think, I want them to keep safe.
And what?
But I just think I would like to know why was that. Why did that happen? Like, why did they send these troops? Like, I guess, did it actually happen? What was the outcome?
What I mean by there's no research to say that it was, that was happening. That happens in many communities and across the board in different communities. So I'm not saying that it wasn't happening. What I'm saying is that there wasn't a finding that there was a significant amount of happening in the communities that should have led to this initiative happening.
So they just, decided that, like the government does, just says, oh, let's just do this, but there's actually no community input, basically. Exactly. There's no, grassroots programs that do some probably offer more of service than just sending some troops.
It's sending the troops and military. It's into these small communities. But why I'm bringing that up is because there was a fuel sniffing epidemic that sort of went quite crazy amongst young First Nations people, especially youth within the Northern Territory, but across the country as well. It wasn't just in the Northern Territory. But the reason I want to unpack this and give historical context is because I want to make sure that people understand how this was introduced. It wasn't just these kids going and, buying petrol and sniffing it because they thought it was a fun thing to do. It was actually something that it was seen and role modelled from the military that were put into these communities.
And just to also clarify, the military, a lot of First Nations people weren't even allowed, weren't even people, so they couldn't even apply for the military. So we're looking at, majority of the military being, non-Aboriginal people.
Mm.
So
yeah, of course.
So they're mimicking.
But even if blackfellas went and did fight...
or did service,
did serve in the war, they weren't recognised.
Exactly, yeah.
But I just want to understand, I want to sort of put out there the not the reasoning behind it. There's no justification for it, but there's context. There's historical context of how that fuel sniffing epidemic started, and it was because it was actually role modelled by servicemen within the Northern Territory when the Northern Territory intervention was happening, and it sort of blew up, and it was a way to sort of target First Nations people for as a stereotype for substance abuse, and I think that there was a craze of it, and I think it's still happening, but it's making sure that the wider community doesn't see that as a symbol of our culture, because
it's not.
It's not absolutely not. Exactly. And I think that across different communities there are all different substance abuse that happens, and it doesn't discriminate. It's, a major problem in our country, drug use and substance abuse and addiction. And it's not just in Aboriginal communities. It is across, many communities.
Exactly. My uncle got kicked out of a petrol station actually because he walked in with like a Gatorade bottle and they immediately profiled him and kicked him out, and he was dead sober. The what he had in the Gatorade bottle was actual water because it was 40-something degrees in Carnarvon, and he got kicked out because basically that is like the racism that exists like sometimes in my own community against my uncle. So that was like really frustrating because I actually, as a young kid, I was like so confused. And we had to walk home. So I went down there, couldn't even get me an icy pole. How frustrating.
And in that same vein of, substance abuse and fuel sniffing, I hate, the fact that we are labelled as alcoholics. There is, Can
we just remember like where alcohol came from and like how it was introduced? Like it wasn't something that we had in our own communities. 65,000 plus years ago, we didn't just have alcohol. Like it was a result from what, I guess, colonization came. Colonization happened and it was brought and imported. Like
really early stories of how alcohol was introduced to First Nations people, especially the first negotiators. I'm talking Bennelong. There's stories of bribing and almost giving them this magic potion that created a feeling inside of them that then they would get information out of them about the tribe and about the culture and about the history of the country. And it was, as we know, the First Fleet, the whole drunken sailor image. It's not something that, Aboriginal people started in this country or First Nations people had as part of their culture. It was an introduced thing. And we also have to look at why people turn to alcohol, why people turn to, substances. There's a lot of factors that contribute to that, and I think that a lot of those factors actually boils down to colonization and boils down to dispossession, and the lack of support when it comes to justifying First Nations people's hurt and trauma. So
intergenerational trauma that's been passed down generations due to colonization. So like it's something that it's not innate. Like Aboriginal people aren't born alcoholics. Just because substance abuse exists, while it can, happen in communities, is not innately who we are as people. So
totally.
like it fucking frustrates me when like someone automatically thinks that we're alcoholics because I'm like, I've never. Like, one stage, I'd never had drunk for, like, a very long time. So I was like, this stereotype sucks. Like, so...
I also believe that, like, when it comes to these sort of conversations, as a First Nations person, I want to be honest and I want to be truthful and I want to be reflective of my own experience too, because that's, the most honest you can be is talking from your own point of view. And I've struggled with... my relationship with alcohol in the past. And I haven't, this year I've been sober for 8 weeks actually. Nearly 8 weeks I've been sober, so 2 months. And I must admit it is a great feeling to be able to let something like that go. And I don't know what my future looks like with it, but I'm sticking to my guns at the moment to create a better behaviour when it comes to alcohol, because my pop died of alcoholism and my dad was an alcoholic for many years and he's been sober for nearly 10 now. But he fights the issues that come along with alcoholism. So I think it's really important for me to be transparent and say, yes, there is an alcohol issue in many of our families as First Nations people, but we need to get to the core of why and what causes that, not just label our people as alcoholics.
Yeah, it's an overgeneralization and it's like, it's actually quite harmful.
Yeah, it is quite harmful, and it smears us as a certain type of person, and it's not fair on our community to be seen like that. But also, on the flip side of it, we also need to break the cycles, and we need to break the chains that have been in place from colonization on our people, and that's sort of why I'm doing it, because I'm like, if I don't break this link, who's going to break it?
Exactly.
Like, do you put that onus on your children? No, you should do it. Before. So,
well, I mean, in Australia, like I think we're like we're very alcohol driven, like with our sports, and it's like. Well, and not to overgeneralize and be like, oh, Australia, we're all alcoholics, because that's not the case. But, like, look at all the major sponsors of, like, all the major games, concerts. Like, they're all alcohol brands, you know what I mean? So, like, Australian culture is very, like, surrounded by alcohol. So, like, why generalize just a certain type of people, my people, as alcoholics when in reality, Australia is like fucking surrounded by alcoholism.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like it really frustrates me because it's like, well, I mean, I'm going up against this all the time. I mean, your experiences are very similar to mine in terms of like my own family having, experienced a lot of alcoholism, but it's not who I am, and I won't identify with that, and I will continue to challenge it and redirect the conversation and I guess, misconceptions.
Yeah, and it does take work. It's like not easy. It's hard work.
Not. And you got to be ready for it. Like you said,
you got to be ready for
not
it.
Today. I don't want to have this conversation today, but it's like if you don't have the conversation, people are going to continue to think like that. And I feel like more of our population in Australia need to have these conversations. Like just our allies. Like you need to be on board with this and be like on board with recreating the narrative for all people, but also our Aboriginal and Torres Strait people. We need to show a little bit more respect here.
Yeah, but I also think that it's a bit of it's a way to manipulate the idea of who we are, and it's a way to, I suppose, steer a perception of First Nations people.
Yeah.
It's, if they can box us into a stereotype, if they can shove us down to an idea that we're all alcoholics or that we're all poor or that we, get free shit, it's a way to be able to box us in and control us. And it's a way for people to see us as less than. And it's up to us. It's up to our, our young generation to break those cycles and break the mold when it comes to redefining who we are as First Nations people in this country. And like, that's one of my whys. To sort of the work that I do. But, I absolutely fucking hate when people say we get free shit. Because can I ask, let me ask you this serious question, serious time. How much free shit have you got from the government?
Free trauma. That's probably about it.
You know what? I'm going to admit something. I'm going to admit something a little bit
I mean,
naughty.
as an influencer, I get free shit. So, like,
gifted?
Yeah, gifted, exactly. It's not fucking free. It comes with a platform. But I ain't got no free shit when I was younger. Like, what? Yeah. What did you get?
No, what I want to say is actually draw a parallel to the opportunities and the initiatives and the maybe subsidies that blackfellas get in this country.
Yes,
and for the wider community. Yeah. Because there is this perception out there, and I spoke about it earlier, the girl from last night. And I'm not going to name and shame because I really like this person and I don't want, to put any bad vibes on her. It's more about the idea. So anything that a First Nations person can get in terms of government benefit in this country, a non-First Nations person has access to as well.
Boom.
But if you look at all the government subsidies, if you look at all the government initiatives, there is also a version of that for the wider community. The reason that there is a focus on the initiatives and the idea of closing the gaps for First Nations people is because the level of inequality in this country is so excessive. There is a massive disadvantage to be a First Nations person, especially from rural and remote communities in this country. So if you're out there and you're wondering, but there's so much opportunity for blackfellas in this country, you have to ask yourself, why is that? It's because of the level of inequality. And if there wasn't a level of inequality that exists, we wouldn't need those initiatives, those programs, those subsidies.
Yeah.
And even sometimes the programs that are out there, they're not First Nations led, so they don't work. So there's a lot of money funneled into programs that then don't have any actual effect on communities.
Yeah.
It's, the mission manager scenario, giving it to, a white manager at an organization to help a black community. It's never going to work. I want to challenge our listeners about the whole like stereotype of free shit. Like, why is it that, the First Nations people in this country need more opportunity than the wider community? Why? It's about the why. It's not, though they have more, that must mean they get more. Absolutely not.
No, we have less.
Absolutely not. There's a massive gap.
We have less life to live as well.
Life expectancy.
Yeah.
In health, in poverty, in education.
Look at me. Look, I am an Aboriginal person. My partner is Australian, let's just say. I die younger than them, and we live very similar lives. But being an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person, you're more likely to die younger. Like, why?
Yeah,
why?
there's so many things we could go into in terms of health.
100%. Yeah.
Like there is massive mental health issues in our community due to the fact that we don't feel like we're enough.
Yeah.
We aren't seen as the same.
This is the just on like mental health, like people won't know this, but Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have a different view, or like their social emotional well-being, like what is a part of an Aboriginal person is there's a lot that contributes to that is different and hasn't been catered or thought about, or the health system has never actually, like, until more recently, obviously now there's more research into it, but the system wasn't adhering to what the social emotional well-being looked like for an Aboriginal person for many years.
Different.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest barrier, I think, as well, like in our health system, is that it's just, it's not just one size fits all and one approach. And that's the thing that I get so frustrated at, because it's like you need to understand what a person, what a person's makeup is as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I just, bit of a tangent. But
no, I totally get that. But these are like just some of the things that we're like, and when I say we're up against, look, I'm on my like transparent and open era.
Are you high?
Like, because when I speak, I sometimes speak from, like, I feel like I'm speaking about things that yes, they affect me, but I know how to navigate them better than a lot of fellas within our community, right? So when I say we're up against these challenges, like, yes, I'm up against these challenges, but I'm in a good position to be able to combat them. And I want to be honest about that. Like, I feel like I've sort of got my ways to be able to combat that. But there are people from our communities that don't see above the waves, because it's like all of these stereotypes are just wave after wave after wave of who you are, and they never get a chance to sort of stick their head out and go, actually, I see above that, because they're just like downtrodden from life. And like me as a black fella, I speak on these things not because they're exactly what I experience every single day, but they're things that I know mob experience every single day.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't agree more in that aspect. I think that's exactly, like, I've broken the cycle in my family to be able to be above those waves, like you said, to be able to now, I guess, share and use my voice to sort of help other mob, and think, we've been self-determined to get here.
Yeah.
And I hate sometimes the word self-determination because I think it gets so overused. But I think it's the best way to describe it is just like we are both determined, but we haven't forgot where we come from, and we haven't forgot where we're going as well. Like,
Yeah. And I think, like, if you are a non-Indigenous person or, you're from another community, understanding that your unconscious bias is something that you need to learn about. You need to understand that where you get to stand in life is different to other people.
Yeah.
And not just First Nations people, you know? And I think that when you can unpack your unconscious bias and sort of rubble through your privilege and really understand that you are, you know, possibly so much further ahead in terms of opportunity and advantage than a lot of people in the world. And I think that's where it starts. It's understanding where you stand.
Yeah.
In regards to opportunity, privilege, unconscious bias, and being really transparent and open about it if you don't understand that as well.
I have a thing, like, right, so, you know, just like the girl that kind of, you know, what she said, your friend that she said about Aboriginal people. Like, I have a real problem with that. Like, I don't, you know, that would be really uncomfortable and I would be like, you know, and I've also got, you know, different comments, which, you know, like the comments of like, oh, like, you know, what part of you is Aboriginal, or oh, you're too pretty to be Aboriginal, or I used to get like, oh, like, but what else are you, or like half full, and I actually was at work the other day, and my girls were actually watching the Rabbit Proof Fence.
Oh yeah,
and it brought me so much joy because, you know, we're all crying at the moment where they kind of, you know, reconnect and she gets back to her mum and grandmother and they're singing out to her. It's a really beautiful moment. But then it kind of cuts to the search that Mr. Neville, God, I hate that name. Yeah, and how he talks about Aboriginal, about being half caste. And that was something that I used to get teased about a lot, about the way that I looked and the way that I sounded, and you know, oh, I got green eyes, like I'm not one of, you know, it was just really frustrating in terms of like your identity and what that can have on a young person's life. But back to identity, look, I feel like that, you know, that statement that we say, you're too pretty to be Aboriginal, is, I guess, like the notes that we wrote were quite objectifying and very, very dismissive of what Aboriginal people could look like and what they look like, if anything. Like, I used to get always really frustrated at school because once upon a time I actually got like a little bit embarrassed by ticking the fact that I was Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and I would like actually hate doing that as a kid sometimes because, you know, if you're not white enough, you're not black enough, like where the fuck do you sit? You know what I mean? And that's so frustrating. And I think, you know, when my girls were watching Rabbit Proof Fence and I was just like seeing their little faces, like, you know, heartbroken by being disconnected by family and they're away from home, like feeling obviously a bit homesick. I look around the room and my girls are all so diverse looking and so different and so fucking beautiful. Like, I literally look at them and I'm like, oh my God, little supermodel, you know? Like, when I look around the room and my beautiful girls are all shades of brown and black and fair, whatever. I'm like, at their core of it, they're still black.
Yeah.
You know? They're
exactly
still,
right.
Yeah. They still have 65,000 plus years behind them, and they'll know when they walk in this world that, you know, just like I guess I got to quote the Uluru statement that triggered, is that, you know, when our young people flourish, they will learn to walk in two worlds and their culture will be a gift to them.
Yeah, that's powerful. Deadly. Well, I think that's all we have time for. But you mob, if you're listening, go and do your research and, you know, go and check your unconscious bias.
Go on then.
Go on then. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to First Things First. If you love us, leave us a little rating and a little review.
And if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our socials. My handle is at Brooke.Blend and Maddie's handle is at It's Maddie Mills. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you more. Bye.